Between the time when the oceans drank Atlantis and the rise of the sons of Arius, there was an age undreamed of. And unto this, Conan, destined to bear the jeweled crown of Aquilonia upon a troubled brow. It is I, his chronicler, who alone can tell thee of his saga. Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
This goes out to all my soldiers all across the globe. It is a battle to be fought, destined to be fought. This battle is neither political nor religious. It's a spiritual battle. And this battle is called Armageddon. Are you ready?
Welcome everyone to FMJ. It is your girl, the Black Wealth Empress and the Crown Prince, coming to you live from the DMV. And for those of you who don't know and are new to the channel, that is DC, Maryland, and Virginia, not the old place you used to go to renew your tags. Anyway, today we wanted to just chime in with you guys, and we're going to try something a little different for you today. And this is a series that I'm sure you guys will fall in love with in the future. But we have our own ID series, as it were. And today we're going to be covering the beautiful story we call Mommy Dearest, the smothering story of Theresa Knorr.
This is a compelling story. Very
much so.
And we thought it is a good time to, reintroduce it into the public consciousness because so many people in Generation X, Y, and Z may not have heard this story, and it's very tragic, and the perpetrator is one of the people that you're supposed to trust the most. Let's do it.
What do we call that when you trust your mother a little too much?
Rule number 1, which is mother manipulation. We coined this term and we will go in depth at a later time, but context should lead you to understand what we mean.
And there will be plenty of stories under this category.
Yeah, this is our true crime series. We're going to be delving into anything from true crime to the Canterbury Tales to the first emperors of Rome.
Indeed, because we feel like, honestly, scouring the internet and really observing it, noticing there's a lot of lack of awareness and education. So we just decided, if there's a lack of something, we fill the void, and here we are. So we hope you like this story as much as we do. Of course, it has a dark, tragic twist in it. However, better to know than not to know, and we'll give you our cute little PSA at the end. Let's hop into it. You ready?
Absolutely.
All right. Theresa Jimmy Francine Cross Knorr was born in
Placer County,
Sacramento, California, on March 14, 1946, to parents Jim and Swanee Cross. She was the younger of 4 siblings. Her mother had a son and daughter from a previous marriage and 2 daughters thereafter with Jim Cross. Jim Cross was a cheesemaker.
Cheesemonger.
Would you like to explain what a monger is?
It's basically a seller. So if you sell fish, you're a fishmonger. If you sell cheese, cheesemonger.
No, he definitely
milk and dairy.
He was a cheesemonger. And so Jim Cross was a cheesemaker monger at a local dairy factory. Eventually, he saved enough to move his family to Rio Linda. In the late 1950s, Jim was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, which forced him into early retirement. He became depressed and took it out on the family, while Swanee was left to carry the financial burden for the family. Swanee and Theresa were very close, and it destroyed her when her mother died from congestive heart failure in March 1961. Jim Cross was forced to sell the family house and would die a few months later, while Theresa was only 14.
On September 29, 1962, 16-year-old Theresa Knorr married Clifford Clyde Saunders, who was 5 years her senior. She dropped out of high school and got pregnant with her first child. July 22nd, 1964, Theresa gave birth to Howard Clyde Saunders. A beautiful, brawny baby boy. The marriage was rocky, to say the least. Theresa was possessive and repeatedly accused Saunders of infidelity. Fighting continued throughout their relationship, and on June 22nd, 1964, Theresa claimed Saunders hit her in the face during one of their many disputes. She reported the incident but refused to press charges. July 6, 1964, Saunders and Theresa got into yet another argument due to him spending so much time out, and tonight was his birthday. Saunders told Theresa he planned to leave her, and she became enraged. She shot Saunders in the back, killing him in cold blood with a rifle.
So Theresa was arrested and charged with Saunders' murder, pleading not guilty and claiming self-defense. During her trial, she was pregnant with her second child, claiming that Saunders was violent and an abusive drunk. Saunders' family pleaded to the contrary, and prosecution called this a malicious act done without any provocation.
You believe her?
Which one?
I would tend to have put more stock in what Theresa said had she not followed up with additional cadavers.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the time she didn't have a background and she was still young.
Right, so the judge
kind of was a little lenient. Yeah, and I mean, because of the one incident where the police did get called, because you know, if you call the police, even if you don't leave an incident report, the log is still in there that you called. And just making a phone call for a hit in the face is still considered. So I'm sure that was the one thing she was able to use to carry her.
This is a paper trail.
Yeah, that's kind of important when you're trying to prosecute somebody. Evidence is always necessary.
And the state takes it upon itself to pick up certain elements of the crime.
Yeah, especially if the family itself doesn't press charges, the state can very well still do that.
Right.
Just a little, you know.
Yeah, let's see how the seed grows.
Alright, so Theresa's oldest sister testified against her, which is already a bad look. That just goes back to what we were saying.
That's not very loyal.
No.
And the Godfather, Vito Corleone, speaks of never discuss the family's business with outsiders. As you can see, Theresa's older sister missed that lesson.
Yeah, clearly, because she was up singing like a canary, not even under witness protection, so... Anyway, she testified against her sister, calling her possessive and jealous, and said that she would kill Saunders before any other woman could have him. She was acquitted of Saunders' murder on September 22nd, 1964, and gave birth to her second child, Sheila Gay Saunders, on March 16th, 1965.
A beautiful baby girl.
Yeah, she didn't think so.
But after Sheila's birth, Theresa began drinking heavily. She briefly had a relationship with Estelle L. Thornsbury, even living together for a time. But it ended after her excessive partying, drinking, and an affair with her lover's best friend.
See, you think her sister was right to snitch on her now?
She's getting there. Afterward, she would then meet her second husband, United States Marine Corps private by the name of Robert Knorr. She became pregnant with her third child and were married on July 9th, 1966. Susan Knorr was born September 22nd, 1966. The couple had 3 more children subsequently. William Robert Knorr on September 15th, 1967. Robert Wallace Knorr Jr. on December 31st, 1968, and Theresa Marie Knorr, their youngest, on August 5th, 1970.
Theresa, just for future reference, is also known as Terry, just so you don't get lost in the sauce. Because we want to make the difference so you don't know Theresa and Theresa. That would be confusing.
And she ends up being the sole surviving girl.
The whistleblower.
And the main witness in the case.
So there you go with the loyalty thing again.
Right.
If your sister testified against you, and your daughter had to testify against you. That's a problem.
You know what they say? The best way to keep a secret between two people is to kill the one. But their volatile relationship would soon come to an end.
Robert and Theresa began to erupt in violence and aggressive behaviors with each other. She began accusing Robert of having affairs, and they began to beat each other and the kids. Fed up with accusations, Robert finally left his family in December of 1970. Robert attempted to see his children, but Theresa prevented him from doing so, which sounds very common in today's age.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that in 1970 that was still a thing.
Yeah, this could very well have happened yesterday.
Right, and for all of you people who be talking about colors, they're this color, so don't even try it.
Right. Make of that what you will.
So Robert attempted to see his children, and Theresa prevented him from doing so. And Theresa Knorr would marry twice again after Robert in 1971 to Ronald Pullman, and that ended due to Theresa's affairs and drinking. Obviously a ongoing thing.
And as you can see, she's a bit of a roadside strumpet.
Yeah, definitely acting like one.
This was part of the motivation that caused so much enmity between her and her kids. Was the fact that she was declining in her looks and dating options, and her daughters were on their ascent.
Yeah, exactly. And that happens a lot, again, even today. It's very parallel.
Very good.
And so the last guy that she married was Chester Chet Harris, who she married in August of 76. Mind you, Harris and Susan grew close and made Theresa very jealous. Knorr and Harris divorced only 3 months later in November in 1976 after learning that he took nudes with other women.
Theresa Knorr was physically, verbally, and psychologically abusive to her kids, but it got even worse after her final divorce. Knorr gained weight and became reclusive to the point of disconnecting the home phone and refusing her children to even have friends over. The family moved to Orangevale, California, into a 2-bedroom apartment in Sacramento.
You think they would call that a red flag?
Which part?
Her ripping the phone cord out of the wall and saying, "No one other than us can be in this house ever."
Well, she had shrunk the kids' world to the house. Like they had to really, the only time the boys got to go out eventually was the word into, but the boys,
I mean, they were
conspicuously enough, never got the brunt of any of this. They might get a scolding or get yelled at, but
they were her treasures.
Yeah, she loved her boys, and in so doing, made them accomplices to the torture and punishment of the girls.
Yeah, and this is where we get into that.
Yeah. Her eldest son, Howard, left home before the move. Neighbors account that the apartment was filthy and smelled of urine. They noticed that the children were never let outside and seemed very fearful, nervous, and high-strung around others. Knorr's abuses and torture continued over the years and was including, but not limited to, beatings, force feedings, burning them with cigarettes, and throwing knives at them for target practice.
Yeah, I will say it's crazy because now I think back to it while you were saying that. I think there were multiple times where there was kids in our neighborhood who were kind of like that, like dirty face, didn't see them at school often. Yeah, and I'm like, now that I think back to it, I'm like, damn, what kind of living situation were they in?
And surprisingly, all mine were white.
That's another thing. A lot of them were Caucasian.
Yeah, we had Daniel N. and Daniel R. Both of them name was Daniel. And one of them had, like, you know, some people get scabs in their nose and it's just always like bloody scabs. He always had that. And it was like the movie Lucas I just recently told you about. Check it out. I'll get you the date and time stamp. But he lived in like a trailer with no real parental supervision because his father had come to school one day for a parent-teachers meeting and was totally drunk off his ass and embarrassed him. So he intercepted anything from the school in on out. But these guys were just like that, where you could see dirt on their face.
Like they just didn't get bathed, no one cared.
Poor kids. I need to Facebook these people and see how they're doing now.
I've tried to find a couple of them, and I've on all social platforms looked at them because like I just felt it in my spirit. So I was like, wonder what happened to that one kid. Yeah. So I had a kid named CJ, kid named Andy, kid named Toby. Like it was a couple of them.
Yeah, my kid's name was Daniel.
Yeah, we wouldn't do like that. We wouldn't do like that. Nah, that's crazy. Yeah, that's again, like I said, that'll be more into the PSA at the end of our little research program here. So
and this story hasn't even begun.
Oh, we're just getting to the juicy stuff.
Yes.
All right. So Susan Knorr, the girls received the worst abuse. We just mentioned that. Knorr once held a gun to Terry's head and threatened to kill her, but she primarily focused her anger and abuse on Terry's older sisters. Terry said in an interview that her mother resented her sisters for their budding beauty and Knorr's own jealousy. Her looks were fading, and she was enraged by this. Knorr also said that she believed her fourth husband, Chet, turned her daughter Susan into a witch. I'm not even sure how that's a thing, but you know.
We saw that. We'll break that down to many hundreds of women lost their lives behind this thing. The witch hunts.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's going to be a good juicy series.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, yeah. See, that's definitely. Y'all like tea?
We got plenty.
We got tea.
It's like the Boston Tea Party.
For days. So, Knorr particularly despised Susan. She was the only one to rebel against her, and she constantly challenged her mother's authority. Susan got it the worst. After one horrific beating, she ran away from home. She was picked up by the police and placed in a psychiatric hospital, where she explained that she was being abused. Knorr, however, denied the abuse and told the staff that Susan had mental issues. Authorities did not investigate the matter further and released Susan back to Knorr's custody because Knorr had already convinced her other kids to tell the police that there was no abuse happening.
That is significant. That will stick with you for the rest of your life. The guilt from you know, your loyalty to your number rule one, mother manipulation, and the loyalty you feel to the safety and protection of you know this thing is happening. And you have to have some idea that it's not normal, even though it's a lot more normal to them than it looks to everybody else.
Exactly.
But she forced the kids to literally look at her sister's killer and tell the police that she wasn't in danger and that her mother was in the right. So as you can imagine, it started the momentum. Knorr immediately punished Susan by beating her while wearing a pair of leather gloves and forced her siblings to take turns in assaulting her.
Right, I was wondering, who was she? A hitman? Why did she have
it? You hit harder.
With leather gloves on?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then it's much less wear and tear on your own hands. Like when you see police.
So she just wanted to beat her to a pulp.
Yeah, if you see police putting on their leather gloves.
That's why it was very important to find out why the leather gloves.
Buckle up, buttercup. OJ left one of his at the house. I got something on that too. Susan was handcuffed to the kitchen table, and her siblings were instructed to take turns watching her while living on top of her. They would have meals, walk through, go run errands, all
go to bed and just leave her.
Yeah, well, so Susan's bound and chained to the table. So you can imagine how much of a nightmare this must have been. How comfortable can you get
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then I'm like, I don't even know if both her hands were bound to the
Even
table
if
because
it's
that's
one.
worse. Yeah, one is bad, but I'm
Yeah.
like, if you're like this, you can't do anything. Can't scratch, can't do anything.
And man, this is the, what, 70s?
Yeah.
That hard linoleum?
Oh, yeah, it was linoleum. Roll 1, 2, 1,
Right,
2,
that's it.
0, 6.
Right. 1, 3, 4, 5. Linoleum. Linoleum. Linoleum.
Linoleum.
Yeah.
Linoleum. All right.
Let's see where we at. She was forced to drop out of school as well as the other children, and most of them never advanced past the 8th grade. Susan was handcuffed to the table on and off for 2 years as Knorr made her suffer. This was all torture and terror tactics. Knorr would hand feed Susan from time to time with scraps from the kitchen table, but she normally had on gag. Susan, unable to take it anymore, begged her mother to let her go. Her 18th birthday was approaching, and they can all see that as light at the end of the tunnel.
Like, let me escape. Just let me go.
Right, if I can make it to 18.
You don't even have to take care of me no more. Just free me.
Right. Problem is, we didn't get to the problem. Susan, unable to take it anymore, begged her mother to let her go. But her mother only went on a rampage the next day and started beating her again. She released Susan for a while, but only to have Terry hold her at gunpoint while she went to feed the other children.
The children dropped a spoon on the floor and it spooked Terry, and she ended up firing the round into Susan. Knorr chained Susan back up to the table, bleeding and all, while being enraged that there was blood on the carpet.
What? But she's bleeding probably damn near to death?
She just was like, would you say, don't stain my floor?
Right. You gotta let me know before you bleed all over my goddamn floor.
He said, dab, don't rub, dab, don't
Right,
rub.
you dab that shit. You don't blot. You don't rub that shit. You blot that
That's
shit.
alpaca.
That's $1,500 square foot alpaca, nigga.
Hey, don't rub on that. You block that. You understand? That's alpaca. That's $25,000 alpaca. You block that shit. You don't rubble. Put the club soda on there.
No relation.
You don't rub that shit in. You block that shit. Now, Terry couldn't have been no older than like 6 or 7 at this time. And so she has the loaded gun pointed at her sister. She had the gun pointed at her sister. Her mother's doing something in the kitchen. Somebody knocked over a bowl, dropped a spoon or something. Startled Terry. Being a 6-7-year-old with a hair trigger, you can imagine her jumping and discharged the weapon, shooting her sister in the chest, was it? I just wanted to go in more depth of picturing a little kid holding a gun at you. You know, but you got it.
Susan begged to be taken to the hospital, and Knorr finally decided to barely nurse her back to health. She first instructed Robert to try and retrieve the bullet from Susan's body. Susan survived that, and Robert's untrained attempts to remove the bullet in her chest caused an infection that led to sepsis.
But they were unable to get the fragment.
Yeah, that's what I said his attempts at.
Yeah.
So Knorr ended up having to drag her to the bathroom, still bound, so it says, and remove the bullet from her body there. However, although the surgery itself was successful, Susan was too far gone. The infection had taken hold of her.
Now, when she was in the bathtub, her mother had her handcuffed to the little bathroom rail, hand.
Like the thing you used to get in and out of the tub, right?
So, she made her drink a half a gallon of vodka and commenced to poking and prodding. go.
I don't know how that works, but I don't think there'd be enough vodka in the world for me to be, like, I don't know, mentally stable while someone digs through my flesh with a knife.
You see it on movies where they drink the liquor and then pour some on there.
Yeah, I also know that's a movie.
Right. So this is the mother
replicating movies.
Right. This is how tough she's treating him. Like, here, drink this. Like, you handcuff, your arm is stuck. You drink this. Pour some on there. This is amazing. This woman is absolutely incredible.
She is definitely a beast. July 16th, 1984, Knorr packed up Susan's belongings into trash bags and binded her, put her into the trunk, and took her to Squaw Valley, where Robert and William laid her on top of the belongings on the side of the road. Knorr then doused the still-living Susan in gasoline and proceeded to set her on fire along with the belongings. She really did. Living, breathing, set her ablaze.
Side note, she made one of the boys strike the match.
That's the accomplice for real.
Well, all of these have very detrimental and long-lasting psychological effects on these people.
Absolutely.
I mean,
I just murdered my sister.
Right.
She wasn't dead. Imagine having to go numb while you're digging in her with the knife. Like, I mean, do you already feel numb from beating her ass all the time?
Rule number 1.
Mother manipulation.
Ruin their whole lives.
They didn't know much outside their home, and they didn't get past that 8th grade education.
Yeah. And some of them never made it out of the house. Literally. So you can imagine. This is where I kept getting confused. The fact that Sheila's older. You know what I mean? Because if 18 was the goal, that means Sheila overstayed. You see what I mean?
Yeah, she just stayed there.
Right.
But like you said, where was she gonna go? What was she gonna do? And like her father was dead. I'm sure the family's like, we don't want no parts of that strange ass family.
Whoever gave her a profession.
We'll get into that.
Taught her trade. That's a decent trade.
No.
Lucius got apprenticed to a stonemason.
Stonemason, now that's a decent trade.
Susan's smoldering body was found the very next day. It was impossible to identify her, however, because her remains were too charred, and she was considered a Jane Doe in '84 for almost 10 years.
After Susan was out of the picture, Mom turned her attention to Sheila, her eldest remaining daughter. She forced her into prostitution in May 1985 to help support the family. Knorr was unemployed and lived on benefits of the state. She originally enjoyed the large amounts of money that Sheila was bringing in and allowed Sheila to come and go as she pleased. After a few weeks, however, Knorr became very angry and accused Sheila of being pregnant and contracting an STD that Mom she claimed to have contracted from a toilet seat. But as you know,
is she the roadside strap?
Who knows when Mom came across
that? That was a gift from another.
You can't blame yourself, can you? Shit. Sheila denied all accusations, and Knorr began to beat her again. Hog-tied her and locked her in the closet with very little ventilation. Now, you could picture a linen closet. This is like an oubliette. An oubliette is like a deep pit in the castle where they could drop you into the cellar and then put a lid down, and you can't stand straight up and you can't lay flat out, so you can only be bent.
Yeah.
And that sounds like the size of this closet.
Because they said she couldn't do anything, she couldn't move.
Okay. Yeah. Knorr banned her kids from giving Sheila food or even water, or to open the door at all. Terry, feeling sorry for her sister, would sneak her things sometimes of water, and one time of beer. She wanted Sheila to confess, since that was Mother's way, so that she could get from under.
Yeah, she didn't want her to see her punished anymore.
Yeah, couldn't stand to see her suffer. So she figured if she would just confess, she would get out.
It would be over with.
Yeah. Okay, so Sheila confessed, saying she was pregnant and had contracted the STD, but Knorr didn't believe her.
Is that not crazy? You can't win for losing. I was gonna be stuck in this closet either motherfucking way. Never confessing, I would be stuck in here. Confessing, I'm stuck in here. And now I'm really stuck in here because now she thinks I'm lying.
Well, by this time, the mother is probably proficient at when you would look like you ain't gonna make it. You know what I mean? And she could probably, because they said the smells and all that, so she could tell that something, she was rotten in there. Because like you said about, she used to think that her daughters were witches and all that from the father and all that.
It's so crazy.
So when she contracted, when she started beginning to get sick, she blamed that on evil spirits.
Yeah, I'm sure. Sheila Knorr died 3 days after confessing from dehydration and starvation. Knorr left her body in the closet for an additional 3 days because she hadn't discovered the body. She discovered it after the smell. Once again, Knorr ordered her sons to dispose of Sheila's body, which had begun to decompose. The entire apartment reeked of death. The boys put her body in a popcorn box from the theater where Robert worked and disposed of her near Truckee Tahoe Airport. Her body was discovered a few hours later and was also unidentifiable and became Jane Doe 85. After Sheila's body had been removed, the smell of her decaying body still remained in the apartment. Knorr became paranoid about the physical evidence in the closet and that it would condemn her if it was found. On September 29, 1986, what remained of the Knorr family and their belongings moved out of the apartment, and Knorr instructed poor little Terry to burn down the apartment and all of the evidence.
Terry complied, obviously, and dumped 3 containers of lighter fluid all over the apartment floor and set it alight. However, it did little damage and the neighbors reported the fire quickly. The closet, however, remained undamaged and would be pivotal in building a case against Theresa Knorr by the evidence that was able to be pulled from the floorboard. After moving, Knorr went into hiding, and her surviving children, who were of legal age at this time, severed their ties with their mother. And Terry escaped her mother's clutches by using Sheila's ID to pretend to be of age instead of only 16. Robert was the only child to remain with Knorr. He was 19. They had moved to Las Vegas, Nevada, in the attempts of keeping a low profile. In November 1991, Robert was arrested after shooting and killing a bartender in a Las Vegas bar during an attempted robbery. As you can see, the reverberation from
the trauma we were talking about.
Right, you throw the little pebble in the water and whoop.
That's why I was asking. I said, do you think by the time he had to dig in her with the knife that he was already numb because he's beaten her up so many times with his mother?
No, they were numb when they were kids. They had to see. She taught them to see their sisters as objects.
Okay.
And just follow mother's instructions. They never considered them feeling pain. I mean, this is my
take on it. Yeah.
My untrained.
Right. We are definitely not professionals.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's what I think, because it was nothing to them by then. Although it did seem like it bothered them that they lit their sister on fire while she was alive.
Yeah, I'm sure they were like,
It seemed like they cared a little bit about that.
I mean, it was the murder in the cold blood for me.
Right. And the mother making accomplices with their soul.
Yeah, I'm like, that's a blood sacrifice.
You got a rotten soul. He was sentenced to 16 years in prison for the crime. And soon after, his mother fled to Salt Lake City, Utah. Very beautiful place, too.
I wish I have been there. I have not. I'm trying to get to Utah. Is on my list of things to do because I can see the Milky Way from there.
Yeah, this is where Salt Lake is like literally what it is.
Yeah, like it has the what you call them, crystals
raw,
and all. Yeah,
you can like taste it and it's salty.
I need to taste. I know what salt tastes like.
I mean, because it's not regular salt. I mean, it's rocks, like rocks.
Rocks. So yeah, I got you.
But the Mormon history in the area is incredible because they say Jesus came to Jerusalem and all that. Then he came to Utah.
Do they really say that?
Yeah, swear to God. Like they have the second coming already, so they like waiting for the third coming or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then he came to Utah.
Because their prophet is called John Smith or something like that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Because I remember I told you I was speaking with some Mormons. They're very nice people.
Yeah, they're fine people. And that's probably why, and they're still fine people because they keep to themselves.
That's probably definitely a big point.
But the history, like you can go into the Mormon temple and then they show this like Christian. I used to love the Christian little cartoon videos as a kid. It's like
they were good, like telling the good stories. Yeah.
It was one of those. And then John Smith showed up. And Jesus is like, I'll be right back. I'll meet y'all in Utah. But they're very separatists. You know what I'm saying? They don't really mix too well with the likes of the great unwashed.
After escaping, Terry tried to seek help with Utah police for her sister's murders, but they waved them off as fantasy. October 28th, 1993, Terry phoned the hotline for America's Most Wanted on Fox and was told to connect to Placer County Police. Was told to connect to Placer County Police, where Susan's body was found. PCPD took her seriously and opened an investigation linking the two Jane Doe cases together, found in the area in 84 and 85. They connected to Terry's story, detailed the gruesome, torturous murder of her sisters. What were you going to say?
No, well, I was just going to say the fact that the two body dumps were only 6 miles apart, which is part of the reason that
they were so suspicious.
Well, that they would believe it.
To be like, connected.
We got these two. This girl was saying this happened.
And it was too similar, the way they dumped the bodies.
Right. It's like, we need to look into this, Jeff, bro.
Yeah. William was arrested on November 4th, 1993 in Woodland, California, where he had been living and working. That means that these crazy people, when they did just assume that I did it because they had no record of any of this stuff happening yet, were living next door to regular people. They literally murdered two people in cold blood and were just living next door to you, working at your local stores. It's so creepy. Robert was charged with his sister's murders while he was serving his 16-year stint in Ely, Nevada. Knorr herself was arrested at her home in Salt Lake City, and when she was arrested, she was working under her maiden name Cross for an 86-year-old woman that was her landlord's mother. She was actually this woman's caretaker, crazy enough.
Yeah, they did say that sociopaths and psychopaths can compartmentalize, where they could appear to be perfect tax-paying citizens in this lane, and the cold-blooded monster in the other.
That's very creepy.
It is.
Because I'm like, you went from being an abusive, crazy person to tender, loving nurse?
Check the profile.
Okay, so November 15th, 1993, Theresa Knorr was charged with 2 counts of murder, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit murder, and 2 special circumstances charges, multiple murder and murder by torture.
Knorr initially pleaded not guilty, but then made a deal with the prosecution after learning that her son, Robert Jr., had agreed to cooperate against her in exchange for a reduced sentence of his own. The Godfather Part 1.
No loyalty.
She pleaded guilty on the condition that she be spared the death penalty. On October 17th, 1995, Knorr was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences. She's currently incarcerated at California's Institution for Women in Chino, California. Knorr had a parole hearing on July 19th, but was denied. Her next parole hearing is scheduled for July of 2024. Right around the corner.
So look out for that name.
Yeah, right. William Knorr was sentenced to probation in order to undergo therapy for participating in his sister Susan's murder. In exchange for this testimony, the prosecution dropped all charges against Robert Knorr Jr., save one count of an accessory after the fact in relation to the death of his sister Sheila.
And you get the 3 extra years.
Robert Jr. pleaded guilty to the charges and was sentenced to 3 years in prison, which was served concurrently with his 16-year sentence in Nevada. After running away from her mother's home, Terry Knorr married twice and eventually moved to Sandy, Utah, where she lived with her second husband. She worked as a grocer in the same neighborhood where her mother had also lived and worked before her arrest. Teresa and Terry apparently did not know that they lived so close in proximity and had no contact. Terry Knorr died in 2011, only 41 years old, from a massive heart attack.
Which again was crazy since the grandmother died from congestive heart failure.
She did, but all of the stress of that upbringing.
She probably wasn't the well-fed child either. She still was a girl.
Yeah.
And she probably still got her butt whooped.
Yeah, and she probably barely even cared for the kids, especially them.
She said that she was in the kitchen feeding them oatmeal.
Maybe they should have been better daughters.
Yeah, maybe they should have been better sons. Alright, so just a couple of ending notes. There is a little bonus info there. So remember how we said that Theresa Knorr's sister had testified against her? How we kind of made a couple jokes about that? Subsequently enough, she was found strangled at the end of a dead-end alley.
Under suspicious circumstances.
Very suspicious circumstances. And it's interesting that she snitched on her sister.
And then turns up dead.
Yeah.
At the end of it all.
Now, the police said that they investigated and didn't find a connection. However,
you make the call.
Now, the last thing I want to add is our PSA. If you see kids that look unkept, high-strung, that are not outside often, don't look well-fed, maybe you hear strange noises, maybe you smell strange things coming from the department next to you. If you witness these things, I'm not telling you to run and call CPS. However, if you're able to do a little investigating yourself, and maybe if you're even able to speak to a child and give them a safe space to speak, and then have to proceed to do what you got to do, I encourage you to do so. No child left behind, because they can't fend for themselves, and we know rule number 1 can be dominant anywhere.
Which is the manipulation of the child's parents. You know, and all of these physical and psychological cases of abuse, in a lot of cases, the kids feel compelled not to tell on their parents, and the parents take advantage of that.
Yeah, and also be kind, because you never know, there may be a child going through this exact situation, because that's still happening today, and that might be their literal first time getting to be outside, or their little 15 minutes of freedom that they ever get. So, like I said, just look out for it, and take care of your kids, guys. You get to your offspring. Alright guys, we're gonna call it a night. This has been FMJ chiming into you from the DMV, and as we like to say, we want to wish the very best to all of you come-uppers
and all the
hangers-ons. That's it for FMJ. We are out.
Reload, bust back like that. Don't try when we